Men, listen well. The path of attraction is not one of tricks, deception, or desperate effort. It is a path of self-mastery. A man does not seek approval, he cultivates strength. A man does not chase, he walks his own path, and the world follows. But many fail. They fall into the same 9 traps that strip them of respect, of dignity, of power. Today, you will learn to rise above them. A man who seeks approval is a man who kneels before the opinions of others. Women do not respect men who beg for attention. Walk your path, follow your mission, and attraction will follow. The weak man is ruled by emotions, jealousy, neediness, insecurity. The strong man is an unmoved force. He does not react. He observes. He does not beg. He commands through presence. What is chaste runs away. What stands firm attracts. If you flood a woman with attention, you tell her that you are without value. Give space. Let attraction build. A man must be rooted in his own reality. If you adapt yourself to every whim, you become nothing. Hold your beliefs. Walk your own way. Those who respect you will follow. Fear of rejection, fear of loss, fear of being alone. These fears make a man small. Face rejection, stand tall, and know that no single person defines your worth. Words do not make a man attractive, his actions do. If you constantly explain yourself, seek to impress, or fill silence with noise, you reveal insecurity. Be still. Be silent when needed. Let your presence speak. A life of value is not spent waiting. A man who drops everything for a woman has nothing else going for him. Stay busy. Stay on your mission. Let her wonder if she is worthy of your time. Masculine energy leads. Feminine energy follows. Do not become passive, indecisive, or weak. Stand firm. Move with certainty, and embrace the power of masculine presence. A man does not dissolve into another. Many lose their strength by making a woman their world. A woman is a complement, not a purpose. Stay true to your mission, and you will never lose yourself. Men, remember this. Attraction is not about what you do, it is about who you are. The disciplined, focused, and unshakable man is the one who commands respect. Do not seek approval. Do not chase. Become the man you were meant to be, and the world will follow. Desire without discipline leads to weakness. A man who is ruled by his desires is a man who is easily manipulated, easily discarded, and ultimately easily discarded. Desire itself is not the enemy. It is a force, a fire, a drive that, when properly harnessed, can lead to great achievements. But when left unchecked, it becomes a chain that binds a man, making him desperate, needy, and weak in the eyes of others. This is especially true when it comes to attracting women. A man who operates purely on desire will always chase. He will always look outward, seeking fulfillment from another person, rather than building himself into someone who naturally commands respect and admiration. He will believe that happiness, confidence, and self-worth are things that can be given to him by a woman, and in doing so, he will surrender his power. A man who has not disciplined his desires will over-pursue, over-explain, and over-invest in the hope that his efforts will be rewarded with approval. But this is not how attraction works. A woman is not drawn to a man because he needs her. She is drawn to a man who is complete with or without her, a man whose desires are mastered, not controlling him. When a man is ruled by his desires, he acts from a place of scarcity. He sees a woman's attention as something rare, something he must fight for, and in doing so, he communicates that he is not worthy unless she grants him value. But the reality is that a man's worth is determined by his ability to hold his ground, to move with purpose, and to remain steadfast in who he is. Desire must be forged into discipline. The man who can control himself, his emotions, his impulses, and his urges, becomes a force that others naturally respect. He is not swayed by rejection because he does not see rejection as a loss. He is not broken by disappointment because he does not depend on external outcomes for his happiness. He understands that his energy must be directed toward things that matter. His growth, his mission, his purpose. The stronger he becomes in these areas, the less he feels the need to chase validation. Men often believe that to attract women, they must do more, text more, compliment more, be more available. But in reality, it is the opposite. It is in restraint that power is found. When a man disciplines his desires, he learns the power of patience. He does not rush to prove himself. He does not grasp for attention. He is at peace with who he is, and because of that, he moves with confidence. A disciplined man knows that attraction is not something that can be forced. It is a natural consequence of strength, stability, and certainty. When a man controls himself, he is unpredictable in the best way. He does not react emotionally, he does not chase when a woman pulls away, and he does not let his desires dictate his actions. Instead, he remains composed, always centered in his own reality. Can test men to see if they can handle pressure. They instinctively push, pull away, and observe how a man responds. A man who is ruled by desire will fail these tests every time. He will become anxious, he will seek reassurance, and he will try to win her approval through effort instead of presence. But a man who has mastered himself does not react. He understands that attraction is not about. A man who disciplines his desires does not become cold or emotionless. Rather, he becomes someone who operates from a position of abundance. He does not fear loss because he does not define himself by what is outside of him. He does not need a woman's approval because he has already approved of himself. And it is precisely this mindset that makes him attractive. A woman does not want to be the center of a man's world. She wants to be drawn into a man's world. She wants to feel the pull of a man who is moving forward, who is building something, who is living with purpose. And the only way for a man to create that kind of presence is through discipline. By mastering his design, he becomes someone who naturally commands respect, not by force, but by simply being who he is. Desire is a powerful force, but without discipline, it leads to weakness. When a man learns to control himself, to remain grounded, and to walk his own path without seeking validation, he becomes someone that others admire and are drawn to. The world respects a man who needs nothing, yet has everything to offer. A man who is emotionally reactive is a man who is easily controlled. He is a man who can be pushed and pulled by the slightest changes in external circumstances. He is ruled not by his own principles, but by the actions, words, and emotions of others. This is weakness, and weakness repels. A man who lacks control over his emotions will sabotage his own success in life, especially when it comes to attracting women. Women do not respect a man who is unstable, needy, or quick to anger. They may tolerate it for a time, but deep down they instinctively know that such a man is not reliable, not strong, and not worthy of their admiration. Emotional reactivity signals a lack of control, a lack of discipline, and ultimately, a lack of value. When a man allows his emotions to dictate his behavior, he becomes unpredictable in the worst way. He can be swayed by flattery, manipulated by guilt, and thrown into chaos by rejection. This makes him a liability, not a leader. A man who is emotionally reactive reveals his insecurities without realizing it. If he is quick to defend himself, it means he is not confident in his position. If he over-explains, it means he fears being misunderstood. If he chases after someone who is pulling away, it means he does not believe in his own worth. These behaviors do not invite respect, and contempt at worst. A woman may entertain a man like this for a time, but she will never truly desire him. True strength comes from emotional control. This does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending to be indifferent. It means mastering them. It means recognizing when a reaction is unnecessary, when silence is more powerful than words, and when walking away is the best response. A strong man does not react impulsively. He chooses his words carefully. He does not beg for attention, argue for validation, or fight to prove his worth. He simply is. A man who is emotionally grounded is a man who can handle pressure. When a woman tests him by pulling away, by teasing him, by challenging him, he remains unmoved, not because he does not care, but because he is secure within himself. He does not seek reassurance because he does not need it. He does not react to disrespect because he does not tolerate it. He does not fear losing anyone because he knows he will always be fine on his own. This level of composure is magnetic. It commands attention without demanding it. Men who fail at attraction often believe they need to do more, say more, or prove more. But in reality, they need to do less. They need to stop reacting, stop over-explaining, stop proving. A man who is truly confident does not rush to justify himself. He does not respond to every slight. He does not chase after those who are pulling away. He simply exists in his own frame, living by his own standards. This is why dependency on external validation is a trap. A man who relies on others to feel good about himself will always be at their mercy. He will be joyful when praised, anxious when ignored, and devastated when rejected. This makes him weak, unstable, and easy to manipulate. The moment a man seeks approval, he gives away his power. The moment he relies on others to tell him he is worthy, he confirms that he is not. A man must develop an internal sense of value. He must believe in his worth, regardless of how others treat him. This does not mean being arrogant. It means being self-sufficient. It means finding fulfillment in one's own actions, one's own growth, and one's own mission. A man who walks his own path does not seek permission. He does not ask if he is good enough. He simply moves forward, and in doing so, he draws others toward him. There is no greater freedom than the ability to walk away. A man who needs nothing is a man who commands everything. A man who is emotionally independent is rare, and rarity is attractive. Most people are slaves to their emotions, controlled by fear, by approval, by the opinions of others. But the man who is free from this stands apart. He is not reckless, not indifferent, but simply unshaken. When a man depends on external validation, he is no longer leading his own life. He is reacting to the expectations of others. This is why so many men fail in relationships. They mold themselves into what they think a woman wants, abandoning their own identity in the process. They think that by pleasing others they will earn love and respect. But the opposite is true. A man who is constantly seeking approval loses respect, both from himself and from those around him. The solution is simple. Detach from the need for validation. Build a life that is fulfilling on its own. Develop skills, pursue goals, cultivate discipline. Become someone who does not need to be liked because he respects himself enough to stand alone. A man who does this does not chase, does not beg, does not falter in the face of rejection. He remains firm, not because he is playing a game, but because he knows that his value is not determined by anyone but himself. This is the essence of attraction. Not chasing, not proving, not reacting, but simply being. A man who is emotionally grounded and independent will always be in control of his life, and in turn, he will naturally draw others toward him. Strength is not in words, nor in actions meant to impress. Strength is in presence, in the quiet certainty of a man who knows who he is and refuses to be anything else. A man who seeks external validation is a man who has given away his power. He is no longer in control of his own sense of worth. He has placed it in the hands of others, allowing their approval or rejection to dictate how he feels about himself. This is one of the greatest weaknesses a man can have, for it makes him dependent, unstable, and easily manipulated. If a man requires constant reassurance, if he constantly seeks to be liked, admired, or approved of, he is no longer living for himself. He is living for the opinions of others, and in doing so, he loses all respect, both from those he seeks validation from and from himself. Attraction is not something that can be begged for. It is not something that is granted in exchange for effort. A man who operates from a place of seeking approval is constantly trying to prove himself. He thinks that if he says the right thing, does the right thing, or presents himself in the right way, he will be rewarded with attention and admiration. But in reality, the more he tries, the less attractive he becomes. Women do not respect a man who needs their validation to feel whole. They respect a man who is already whole on his own. A man who is confident in himself does not ask if he is enough. He knows he is. He does not seek permission to be who he is, nor does he adjust his personality to fit what he believes others want. This is the essence of true self-respect. A man who respects himself does not need the world to validate him. He does not measure his worth by how many people approve of him. He moves through life with certainty, and that certainty is what makes him. Seeking validation is a trap, because it creates a cycle of dependency. The more a man relies on others for approval, the more he fears losing it. He begins to act in ways that he believes will please others, rather than staying true to himself. He becomes overly agreeable, afraid to say no, afraid to set boundaries, and afraid to express his true thoughts and feelings. This is not strength, it is submission, and submission is the opposite of attraction. A man must be his own source of validation. He must be the one who determines his worth, his direction, and his standards. This does not mean he ignores feedback or refuses to grow. It means that his sense of self is not dependent on how others perceive him. He can listen to criticism without being destroyed by it. He can face rejection without doubting himself. He can walk away from situations that do not serve him without hesitation, because he knows that his value does not come from anyone else. A man who does not seek validation stands apart from the majority. Most people live their lives in fear of what others think. They dress, speak, and behave in ways that are meant to gain approval. They hesitate to take risks, to express their true opinions, or to live authentically, because they are afraid of being judged. But the man who is free from this fear is a rare force. He is unpredictable, unapologetic, and fully in control. That control is what makes him powerful. When a man stops seeking validation, he naturally commands respect. Others sense that he does not need their approval, and because of that, they are drawn to him. A man who is self-assured does not have to prove his worth. His presence alone makes it clear. He does not have to convince anyone that he is valuable, because he operates as though he already knows it. This quiet confidence is what separates leaders from followers, strong men from weak ones, and those who attract from those who change. A man who lives for external validation is constantly at war with himself. He is never truly at peace because his sense of worth is fragile, dependent on the shifting opinions of others. If he is praised, he feels good. If he is ignored, he feels invisible. If he is rejected, he feels worthless. But the man who validates himself is unshaken. He is steady regardless of how the world treats him. He does not rise and fall with the tide of others' approval. He remains firm, grounded in his own sense of purpose. This is the ultimate freedom. To live without the need for validation is to live without fear. It is to be fully in control of one's emotions, decisions, and direction. A man who has freed himself from the need for approval does not hesitate. He does not overthink. He does not second-guess himself. He acts with certainty, speaks with confidence, and moves through life with a presence that cannot be ignored. Women are not drawn to men who seek approval. They are drawn to men who do not need it. A man who is indifferent to whether or not he is liked is far more attractive than a man who tries too hard. This is not arrogance. It is self-assurance. It is knowing that one's value does not decrease simply because someone else fails to recognize it. It is understanding that no single person, no single opinion, and no single interaction defines who you are. If a man wishing to master himself He must first free himself from the need to be validated by others. He must stop looking outward for approval and start looking inward for strength. When he does this, he will no longer chase, no longer beg, and no longer seek permission to be who he is. He will simply be. And in that state of being, he will find that he no longer needs to attract, because he has become someone who naturally draws others toward him. A man who lacks purpose is a man who drifts. He moves through life without direction, without a clear sense of who he is or where he is going. This is one of the biggest mistakes a man can make, especially when it comes to attraction. Women are not drawn to a man simply because of his looks, his words, or his charm. They are drawn to a man who is going somewhere, who has a mission, who is actively building something greater than himself. A man with purpose exudes a quiet strength that commands attention. He does not chase, he does not beg, and he does not seek validation, because he is too focused on his path to be distracted by things that do not serve him. Without purpose, a man becomes reactive rather than proactive. He waits for things to happen instead of making them happen. He looks to others to give his life meaning instead of creating meaning for himself. This lack of direction makes him dependent not only on women but on society, on luck, on circumstances outside of his control. And dependence is weakness. A man who has no purpose seeks fulfillment in relationships, in approval, in temporary pleasures that provide momentary satisfaction but leave him feeling empty in the long run.